Hello, welcome to the second episode of the Lupin Bar podcast. I'm Kate and I'm coming to you from North Wales in the UK on a very creaky chair. Sorry. It was creaky for the first podcast and it's still creaky for the second podcast. Sorry, I don't really know what to do about it. I've just tried swapping chairs. I tried sitting on that stool, but that creaked as well. And so I've swapped back because this one is a swivelly stool, which, yeah, you can see. And that means it's easier for me to reach round and grab things. So, sorry for the creaks. Maybe I'll try and find some oil or something to put on it for next time. We'll see. It's been a couple of weeks since my first podcast. It might even be a bit longer than that. And I did want to do the second podcast a lot sooner, but we've been poorly in this house, unfortunately. Avion, who I live with, he had flu really bad. He's back at work now, but he had nearly a week off work, which totally unheard of. I've never known him to be poorly, let alone poorly enough to be off work. So then I braced myself for getting it as well, and I thankfully didn't get it as bad as Avion, but I did have a terrible cold. I had a fever. I had one day off work, and basically spent a week coughing, coughing, and sneezing. Oh my goodness me, my nose was so full, bunged up and irritated and tickly and awful and horrible. And so I didn't want to do a podcast and basically cough and splutter all over the screen at you all. So I've been waiting till now, which means that I have got quite a lot of stuff to show you, because despite being a bit poorly, I have been really busy. So, you know, when you're off work sick, unless you're like really sick, like Avion was, I was kind of just really sick. I just didn't have the physical energy to go and do a physical job, which is what I do on a Thursday. So that's why I had a day off. So I did some slightly less physical things at home. I probably still overdid it really, but anyway, so I've got some stuff. I've got quite a bit of stuff to show you. And obviously with it being a few weeks since I did my first podcast, I've been getting in lots of knitting as well. And I've got quite an interesting project to show you as well, which is going to be what I'm going to call a remake project. And I've got quite a few of these actually, sort of sitting around in various places in the house, waiting for me to come along and, remake them. So I'll share that first one with you because it's big and chunky, but it's quick. I've just thought, no, I think I know where it is. Yeah. I know where most of it is. There's a little bit I need to show you, but I can probably grab that in a second. But I'm going to start with finished objects because in my first podcast I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I said that I was going to try and sew a project bag. I think I said that. And I didn't just do one, I did two. Okay, so I'll just show you them quickly here and then I'll go into a bit more depth. Not too much depth, a little bit more depth. So I did two, and they're smallish ones because I had projects in mind to go in them straight away. Well, I was only going to do one, and then I loved it so much that I immediately wanted to do another one. So I made these in the space of a few days. Okay, so here they are. And I'll start with this one first. Sorry, it's creaking, the chair's creaking again. But anyway, I'll start with this bag first. I'll empty it because it's got a project in it as well, which I can show you in a minute. Sorry about this, it's going to make a bit of a noise, I think, because I want to show you inside it. Okay, that'll do. Okay, so there's the bag flat. Okay, and it's got some, I don't know if you'll be able to see very well, but it's got linen at the bottom. I think it's a linen mix. I bought it from, we've got this brilliant shop called Abercarn. I don't know how far reaching they are. Ours is in Flintshire, so I've got to drive about an hour to get there, but actually I got this fabric from there as well. Most of this fabric's come from Abercarn. And this is, I think, sort of quilting type, projecty type fabric. This was some stuff that came out of one of those great big bins where it's folded and you take it to the counter and they weigh it and tell you how much it'll be, and you don't really know what the fabric is. It's got linen in it, I'm sure. I'm absolutely definite it's got linen in, but it might well have something else in. I've used most of that for curtains, for the bottom half of some curtains that I've made. I won't show you those, because curtains, they look lovely, but they're a bit boring to make actually. I think they are anyway. And the lining, the inside of the bag, oh, I love it so much. This is very special, and I'm so pleased that I've had, finally found something to actually use this fabric for, because I've had this for quite a long time. And it's fabric that my sister printed. My sister Anna, she's a couple of years younger than me. She's well into crafts. She doesn't knit. I think she can. She's tried it. She can do a bit of crochet, but she does stuff like needle felting. I think she did a pottery course. She's a photographer. And she really got interested in printing onto textiles and sewing last year. She was doing a lot of that. So she gave me a birthday present last year, probably. I don't think it was the year before, because my birthday's in July. Yeah, so maybe it was for last year. She gave me a birthday present and it was wrapped in this really lovely fabric. And I think she got this from Abercarn as well, the fabric, and then printed onto it. So that's her design. They remind me of little coffee beans. So I've been waiting to use that for something, and it's kind of quite a, what's the word? The fabric's, it's really smooth, so it works well as a lining fabric. Except for the fact that you can't, obviously you don't see it until you open your bag, but that's nice because when you open your bag, you do see it. And you can always fold it down like that if you need to when you're using your project bag. And the pink stuff is just, I think I got it from out of like a vintage box of fabric at a jumble sale somewhere years ago. So I've been waiting to use that. And the cord is actually the selvage of some cabbage and roses fabric that I've made my curtains out of. And I didn't want to throw the selvage away because that in itself was just so pretty. The linen is so gorgeous. So I've used it for the drawstring. So that's my first ever project bag. I didn't have a properly designed and made knitting project bag before. And now I do. And it's got a project in it. Shall I tell you that one? No, I'll just show you the other project bag first, and then I'll talk about the actual projects, because what's in it isn't a finished object, and we're talking about finished objects. So, now this has got, oh God, I'm going to make a mess now. This has got a little mix of things in it. It's got a project that's on the needles, so I'll show you that in a minute. But it's got an FO in it as well, kind of. Well, yeah, totally. But this is my second project bag, and after the success of and excitement of the first one, I just wanted to make another one, because I had two projects in mind that I wanted to have on the go. So I wanted them to have lovely homes to live in. So there's some linen. That is also from the selvage of the cabbage and roses fabric, so it's a really beautiful fine linen. And this, the main fabric, is by Cloth and Clover. I splurged, I saved up and splashed out on some Cloth and Clover fabric for curtains. God, I love them so much, they're in my bedroom. But I've only used, it's this fabric about 2/3 of the way down, and then there's another fabric sewn just like that onto the bottom, so couldn't use the full length of the cloth and clover. It's so beautiful, this fabric. But I have some left, so I wanted to use it for something that I could take places with me and look at this lovely fabric all the time. And I've lined this one with Tilda fabric. I bought a fat quarter from my friend Claire, who has a shop. It used to be a bricks and mortar shop, and now I think she's closed the shop. I know that for sure, because she had too many family commitments and realised she didn't have the time to put into the shop. But she's still got an online shop called Wren and Ivy. I'll put a link to it here, because she sells some absolutely really gorgeous stuff. She sells some like really nice artisan craft, like homewares and items, and she sells fabrics, loads of other stuff. Now, I'm not sure if she's got a website up and running yet, but she's got Facebook, so you can. She posts things on Facebook that are for sale, and you can buy like bespoke, really beautiful laser cut letters and really you know, like the large letters that you put up with your initials and all sorts of things. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because I got my fabric from her. And I can't remember what it's called, but I know it's Tilda fabric. And then, is that Tilda as well? That might be the one I got from Claire. She sent me that one as a present, that green one, yeah. That's the one I got from Claire. I think I got that one off another website. She's probably got that one too. But anyway, it was the green one I got from Claire. So that's some Tilda fabric. And see if I can show you inside. I'm going to roll it down. Roll. Said it like, I said roll instead of roll. Like when your gran answers the telephone and she puts the telephone voice on. That's what my gran always used to do. She used to put a posh voice on and say hello instead of just hello. So that's what I just did. Don't know why. So inside my project bag, whether you can see it or not, I'll just turn it, I'll move it around a bit. Anyway, you can see some yarn. But the one I really want to show you, which is a finished object from this week, is a hand dyeing project. There we go. Don't think the colour's showing up very well because, again, not complaining about the absolutely beautiful weather outside, but it's really bright. I keep choosing really bright afternoons to podcast, and they're not the best for showing up colour. So I'll just keep showing you it and hope that you get a glimpse of the right colour at some point. Okay, I dyed this with logwood extract. It's like a worsted weight. Oh, is it worsted weight? There's a lot more people out there that know more about yarn weights than I do. And I can't remember what it was off the website exactly. But I get the yarn from a website called Laxton's. They're based in Yorkshire in the UK, and they sell undyed yarn and fibres. They sell supplies for weaving as well, but they sell undyed spun yarn, and they've got a nice variety of different bases. I'm using a technical word that I'm not sure really what it means, but I've heard lots of knitters talk about bases. So I'm going to use the word and hope that it's right. They've got lots of different bases, and that one is, I think, merino. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, I think it's a single ply. Anyway, because it's not super twisted. I'm sure that's a single ply, and it's a slightly fluffy. Can I just put it really close to the screen? Yeah. I don't think my camera's all that brilliant at focusing on things close up, so I hope you can see that. Anyway, I dyed it with logwood extract, but I made a slight error at the, well, I didn't realise until afterwards actually what I'd done, and I've worked out what I've done now. When I mordanted the yarn, I didn't read the instructions properly. I think I mentioned something about this in my last podcast, that is actually quite a thing that I do. it's one of my less desirable traits, I think, is that I can skim through instructions and think I've read it, and then I haven't actually read it properly. And so I just read the bit about how much alum to put in the water to leave the ball in to soak, your skein or your hank in to soak. I forgot this part where you've got to heat it up for an hour. You actually have to leave it at a certain heat for an hour, apparently, according to the instructions, in order for the fibre to take in the alum mordant. So I happily let that soak for overnight, actually. Whether that would have worked or not, I'm not sure, I don't really know. But next day I got dyeing, and I absolutely loved doing it, and I added all the dye that I had because I wanted a really deep purple colour. And then it got to the stage where once I'd let it cool, I was washing the yarn out really carefully, using a really nice simple technique from Nicole at Hugh Loco. She's got some brilliant tutorials on yarn dyeing, and she's so helpful at trying to explain the processes of dyeing, particularly for beginners. So I'd watched her podcast, and that's what had inspired me actually to get my dyeing equipment out and dye up this skein of yarn. Anyway, and I was washing out the yarn, and I by no means had the bath exhausted. There was still a lot of dye in the water. I think I might have been a bit impatient. But I thought, yeah, I was happy with the yarn, the dye colour, the yarn colour. Anyway, it took quite a lot of washes, and I think not only did it slightly felt the yarn when I was washing it, God, it's only like my second go at hand dyeing, that's my excuse, but it washed about half of the intensity of the colour out of the yarn. Oh, what a disappointment, really, because I watched this beautiful colour just slowly washing and ebbing out of my skein of yarn. But I still like what I ended up with. I actually think, I don't know how much more dye is going to come away from this fibre, because as I've been knitting it, which I'll show you that in a minute, that's what's on my needles. As I've been knitting, I have got purple fingers. Not now, because I haven't been knitting today with it, but I get a nice line across here where I hold my yarn in tension, and I get purple fingers. And the thing I've knitted with it is Mittens. Well, one. It will be a pair. So I think I'm going to have purple fingers for a while, and possibly end up with much lighter mittens than I intended. But I can always over-dye it, can't I? I can always re-dye the mittens as well. So, creaky chair, sorry. So that's my finished object in my dyed yarn, and despite the fact that it's got issues, I am actually really pleased with it, and I'm really looking forward to doing some more yarn dyeing. I'm just in the process of trying to source the equipment that I need. So that's been living in this project bag, which I've been enjoying carrying around with me. I've done some yarn dyeing before. Here's another cake of yarn that I dyed quite a long time ago. This is with Persian berries extract, and there have been no issues with this in terms of the colour coming out of the yarn when I'm knitting. I think I've managed to wash that clear quite well as well. So whether it's the logwood extract or this time round what I did with the mordanting, I don't know. I'll have to do some more yarn dyeing in order to learn a bit more about it, I think. But I've used both of these for the project that I'm about to show you. Is that all my FOs? Yeah. That's it. That's it for FOs, because basically those are my FOs, my project bags. So, as I've just showed you the yarn, I will show you what I've been doing with them. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to make, have I got the pattern here? Oops, yes, I've got a picture, I'll show you that see how well it shows up on the screen. This is, I bought this pattern off Ravelry, but it's a pattern from the Pom Pom Quarterly magazine, and it's by one of my favourite podcasters. So I'll slip in a podcast mention here actually, because I'm wanting to do that. Red Bush tea in my farm mug. Hang on. There's Avion in his tractor. And there's our cows. I love it. So, yeah, the pattern's by one of my favourite podcasters, and actually the first person whose podcast I ever watched. So she is the lady that introduced me to podcasts in terms of, I can't remember how I actually found her podcast now, but hers was the one, how do you word it? I discovered podcasts through this podcast. I don't know how else to word that, sorry. And she's called Melody, and her podcast is it Mandarins or Bee Mandarins? Her website's Bee Mandarins at squarespace.com, and her podcast is Mandarins. And she's a French lady living in Latvia, and I think her podcast is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's really calming. I really love her colour palette and colour choices. They're really, really similar to the sorts of things the colours and the yarns that I really like to work with. And yeah, she does a bit of designing, and this pattern of hers is in the Pom Pom Quarterly. I think it's issue 14, but I'll put it here because I can't remember. I don't subscribe to it, so I just purchased the magazine as a one-off just to get this pattern. I'll only show the picture. I don't know how well you can see that, but they are the Woodland Tales mittens, and I've been in love with these mittens for a long time. I've been pinning them on Pinterest, I've been favouriting them on Ravelry, and then when I'd watched the Hugh Loco podcast and got really inspired to do some yarn dyeing, and dyed my logwood purple yarn, I thought that was the perfect weight and colour to finally make these mittens in. Even though it's spring now, actually, do you know what? It's quite cold out there still. So if I get these done in the next week, which I think I will, I think I'm going to get some wear out of them still. If not, I think I'll hang them up on my wall because they're so pretty and I just love them and they make me smile when I see them. So I've actually got two finished, oh no, one's not quite finished. I've got one finished mitten, one nearly finished mitten, but I haven't got a finished pair because one is in purple and one is in yellow, for reasons I will reveal after I've had another sip. I'm still having honey in my tea because I drink tea with honey when I'm poorly. It really helps your sore throat and it helps you to stop coughing. So I'm going to try and drink this before it goes cold, because that's... Who was it that said that? Katie from Inside Number 23 is always very disappointed when her tea goes cold while she's podcasting, and I'm right with you on that one, Katie. I think that's very sad when that happens. It's a wasted cup of tea. So here's to not wasting your cup of tea. Right, so the first mitten, here it is. I don't know if I'm going to struggle to show you. Oh, I think that looks okay. I'll just move it around like I usually do. I think if I hold it back a bit. And the palm side, so the underside of it is plain stockinette stitch. This is a 1x1 rib. And then there's this beautiful lace pattern, which I believe the inspiration for this pattern, Melody of Mandarins, who's written the pattern, gets lots of inspiration from nature. I think she lives right on the edge of a forest, and I think she likes to spend a lot of time going for walks in the forest and getting lots of inspiration. I think she forages for food as well there, and believe she also forages for material to dye some of her yarns with. So, and I think that this pattern is called Woodland Tales, and I think that she'd had a walk in the woodlands, in the forests one morning, and come back with. She thinks she mentions a fern leaf in her little story about the pattern on Ravelry, and wanted to put that fern leaf into a knitting pattern. So yeah, that resulted in this lovely mitten pattern. So I'll put it on. These are really snug because I've knitted them with a needle size that was smaller than recommended and the gauge smaller than recommended for the pattern, just because I wanted some snug mittens. I get really cold hands, and I think that's my dog's just come in. I'll introduce you in a minute. She's got a chewy, so actually I think she's going to make quite a bit of noise. Where's she going to settle? Can you see her? Yeah, she's gone back outside. Sorry, I was saying about this. What was I saying? I knitted these quite snug because I wanted to have warm, snuggly hands. But then, as I got to the end of this first one, I did slightly doubt my wisdom on that decision, because the thumb here is a tiny little bit tight, and it's the only thing that fit-wise I wasn't quite happy with. Entirely my fault, because, not fault, but it's no fault of the pattern, it's purely because I chose to knit it at a tighter gauge with smaller needles. So, before knitting the next mitten and completing a full pair in a size that I wasn't entirely 100% sure about, I had a look through my yarn stash and found this beautiful other yellow yarn that I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with. Loved the colour, and it is the exact same yarn itself. So I just went up a whole needle size, because there's not much technical reasoning here. I would have gone up half a needle size, but I didn't actually have that size. So the next one I had was a full size up. So that's what I did. I'm trying not to buy too many knitting related things at the moment, because it costs a lot of money. So I'm trying to just work with what I've got. Quite proud of myself actually that I managed to do that. So I went a full size up and knitted a yellow mitten. I've got the stitches are being held here for the thumb. So as you can see, oh hang on, they're both right hand mittens, so I'm going to have to do it like this. I'll put this one on backwards so that I can show you. Kind of works. This is obviously bigger. There's more. Oh, hang on. That's it. That's how I need to show you. There's a bit more give and a bit more room in there. I've got to finish the thumb yet before I can say for sure which one I prefer size-wise. But I love both of the colours. So I think I'm going to be going with the slightly larger size, because I think that the stitch definition is better. I think the stitch pattern probably comes across a bit better in the larger size. Although showing you it now on the screen, I actually think they both look just lovely. I particularly love the little cuff. Look how cute that is. It's such a lovely shape. It's so flattering. It's really feminine. I love it, and I love the 1x1 rib. That's a bit new to me. Normally I just do a 2x2 rib, but this 1x1 rib is gorgeous. I love it. So I'm a massive fan of this pattern. I think I'm going to complete a whole pair of mittens using the larger size. I might pull that one down, because I don't think I'll get two large ones out of this now. So I'll pull that down and reknit them in the larger size. I'm going to see if you can say hello to Charlie. I'll see if I can get her to come in. I've got a bribe for her here because I thought she might come in. But just to finish talking about these, yeah, I think that I'm going to probably knit these for people for Christmas, which is ages away, ages and ages and ages away. But I told my friend about them and she said she really liked the sound of them, woodland tail mitts, and she liked the look of them. I sent her a photo. So I think Emily's going to get some for Christmas, which is a long, long, long while away. But it'd be silly to give them for a birthday, which is in August, because I think it would be too hot for her to wear them. Although, you never know. You never know in the UK, do you? Right, so that's kind of finished object and work in progress. Let's just see if I can get Charlie to say hello to you, because I watched a podcast earlier on in the week as well. A lovely lady called Dana contacted me through Ravelry to tell me that she'd seen my podcast, and she'd just done her very first podcast as well. And so we had a little chat on Ravelry and just introduced ourselves to each other. And then I found her podcast on YouTube, and I'll put it here. Dana Might, she's called on Ravelry, and Dana T, I think, on the YouTube channel. But she's so sweet. She's a really lovely lady, and she showed some of her ongoing projects, a little bit of the work, well, the things that she uses to knit and spin, some lovely yarn and a project that she's going to start. And she introduced you to a couple of her pets as well, a few of her pets. And I thought she was such a lovely lady. So I was inspired, thank you Dana, and hello. I was inspired to, and I wrote her a little message to say that I would introduce my dog, if I can. So, Charlie, come here. Hey, look, what's this? What's this? Right, she's very motivated by food. Come here. Oh. So she's been having a chewy, but she's got really tired now. Look, what's this? Come up here. What's this? Come on. Charlie, up. Come on. Oh, she's not going to. I know, I'll do that. That's probably the easiest thing to do. You're not going to be able to see it. Come on, Charlie. Up, up. That's it. Good girl. Okay, there's honey. there's honey in this mug. Good girl. Well done. This is Charlie. She's 12. She's a Labrador Border Collie. Oh, she's got a really mucky nose because she's got chewy all over it. And I've had her since she was 8 weeks old, a tiny little puppy. And one of her favourite things in the world is food. Anything that she can eat. And she's a really good dog, aren't you? You're a really, really good dog. She's so friendly and lovely and beautiful. She's going to fall off my knee now. Oh, good girl. I'll let her have that down there. You finish that, Charlie. She'll probably make a massive big noise now. That's Charlie. She's probably going to make a big noise licking the mug now. Yeah, okay, that would do. That would be good girl. Okay. I'll just take it off. So that's Charlie. I'm sure you'll hear her click-clacking around the room while I'm doing my podcast at certain points. Hopefully she'll just go and have a little sleep now. Excuse me, still coughing a little bit. Okay, right, back on track with the podcast. Next FO. No, not FO. Oh, what? I didn't mean FO. I meant whip. Next thing to show you. This is another thing that I've had liked on my Ravelry for quite a while. What I love about it is it's so textural, and I've seen some really beautiful examples of it on Ravelry Knitted. And I'm not entirely sure now, I can't remember exactly why I cast this on. I think just because I wanted another hat, which is what it is. Again, a bit late in the season, well, or early, however, whichever way you want to look at it. In the UK, obviously, everyone's going to know this, I'm just going to state the obvious. It's the spring, we're just coming into spring now. I still might get some use out of this hat. Avion told me that there was a possibility of snow this weekend, so not that I'll get this finished. Maybe I will if I do a bit more work on it later, but you never know, I might get to wear it this year. But if not, I will just put it somewhere nice and safe for next year. And sorry, I've gone a bit sniffy now because of coughing. I'll just arrange it on the needle so that I can show you it properly. So the hat, the pattern is called, is it called Phaedra by Gudrun Johnston. I'll see if I can show you. I don't know how well the picture's going to show up. I folded it so there's a big crease through it, but don't know if you can see too well. There's a lot of texture in the hat, and I really like the bobble on it as well. Don't know if I'll have enough. I might have to do the bobble in a different colour. But here is my progress so far. And I'm knitting this with Quince & Co. in honey. This actually is not really a colour that suits my skin tone very well. I originally bought this skein of yarn alongside a load of other yarn, Quince & Co. yarn, when I made a cardigan, the solstice cardigan, last year, I think it was. And that was more of a, was it called Sabine? I made the cardigan in a colourway called Sabine, which is like a really dark charcoal, almost black. And I was going to do the cuffs in this for a contrast, because it's not the best for my face. This is not the best colour to go with my face, the skin tones on my face, but you know, I thought it might look nice on the cuffs. And I'd seen some examples of that cardigan on Ravelry where they'd done contrasting cuffs, or on the Knitbot blog, I think. So I just chose honey. And I think it was one of those cases where it looks different on the website, and then when you get it home, when you actually get it, it's not quite the colour that you thought. But and then when I made the cardigan in the end, I actually kept the sleeves short, because I knit it. The way that you knit it is on a circular needle. You hold the sleeves on waste yarn, and then of course, once I'd finished the whole body, I tried it on before adding on the sleeves, and decided I really liked it short-sleeved and wanted to keep it that way. So I've still got some yarn left over from that project, and obviously I never used this. And it's been sitting here for a long time waiting for something to happen. And because I so badly wanted to knit this hat, and I saw that it needed really chunky weight yarn, somebody on Ravelry had knit it with Quince & Co. in this colourway, and so I just thought, brilliant, that's what I'll do too. So I can't remember what needle size I'm using. It's not the same. I don't think it's the needle size. Oh, it might be the needle size that the pattern says. Hang on, I can probably tell you. It's I don't know why I did it like that. It's 6mm. These are brilliant. I love this. This goes everywhere with me. I don't think I couldn't function knit-wise without that, because I'd never know what equipment I had if I didn't have that little piece of equipment there. So there's 6mm needles. And can you see? I put a lifeline in after I'd done the rib, because you have to read a chart. You have to follow a chart for this, and I have to concentrate really hard on charts. I've got to put a ruler at the line that I'm at and put a line through it and move it up, and I've got a marker, which I'll try not to lose off the end of my needle, to show me when I'm halfway through the chart, because you have to do the chart twice in order to complete one round. So I don't lose that marker, because it could fall off the end of my needle. I'll just thread the needle through the knitting a little bit. So I'd had to start again a few times because of not being able to concentrate very well and going wrong and not knowing why. So after I'd done my rib, I put that lifeline in. It doesn't need to be there anymore, actually. I could probably move it up now. But after a few rows of doing the chart, you actually then get really used to doing it, or I did, and it's very, very simple and very easy to know whereabouts you are and what you've done. I just needed to do a few rows so that I could establish that pattern, in my brain and know exactly where I was and what I was doing. So it's a really, really lovely pattern to knit. I'm really enjoying it, and it's chunky, so it's going really quickly. Oh, there we go. That's probably a good way to show you. So there's lots of holes. I can't think of a better way and a more technical term for it than holes. There's holes in it. Holes that are supposed to be there. There's lots of lovely, that's garter, and there's a twisted rib for the brim. So that's that, and yeah, it's for me. It's quite small. It looks small. It does fit. I've had it on my head. I can get it over my head, and I'm thinking that once I have washed it and blocked it a bit, it might be a bit bigger slightly as well. So I like my hats to be quite close fitting. It can get very cold here, and I live on a farm just on the edge of the Snowdonia National Park. And where we are, we're quite high up above sea level, and the farm itself, I walk the dog every morning, and if we walk up the farm, up the cow tracks, up to the top of the farm, you get a beautiful view of the mountain range, but on a windy day you get very cold head. So that chunky knit hat is going to come in very handy, possibly still in the spring, but definitely in the winter. So I'll be looking forward to wearing that. I won't be looking forward to the winter. I'll be looking forward to having something cosy on my head though. My jumper, right, I'll just show you quickly. I showed you this last week. This needs a special project bag making for it really. At the minute I'm keeping it in this, which I really love. I bought this from the White Stuff. There's no need to change this bag. It's so pretty, I love it, and it fits a jumper project in it. It's just a tote, and I think it was something silly like £3.50 from the White Stuff. So that's going, that's just following me around the house at the moment with this project on. Now I was really good. I put a progress marker in from the last podcast. Straight after the last podcast, I put my progress marker in so that I could show you and me how much I'd got done by the next podcast. So the progress marker is there. So that's where I was down to before. And now, as I'm talking about it and looking at it now, I think compared to a lot of other podcasters out there, for 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks of work, that actually doesn't seem like a lot. I thought it was until I just held it up now. And I'm now thinking I probably could have done a lot more. So could try harder, Kate. But I have been doing all of that other stuff. I've been doing all that sewing, so maybe I won't be so hard on myself. But I'm very pleased because I've finished the body. I'll stand up. Hang on, move the chair back a bit, and I'll hold it against myself. And I've actually managed to knit a jumper that's not too short for me. Not like this one. I knitted this one, and I've knitted it too short, really. So it's a bit chilly. I need to undo this because I've got some yarn left and knit some more on this jumper. But this one, hooray! It's long enough. Yes, I'm really pleased with that. I love it. And it's really squishy. Oh, and I've dropped my stitch marker there that's telling me where... Wait a minute. I just need to pick that up and put it on because that shows me the beginning of the arm round, sleeve round. I've just got to the point where I've put the sleeves on, put the sleeve stitches on, back on the needles. So I'm just going round and round, doing my sleeves now. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So I'm hoping that by the next podcast I will have finished that completely and will be able to show you it as a finished object because now I've shown you it once, well twice, it's not really that interesting to keep showing you it because all it is just a load of green double moss stitch. Yeah, there's not much more interest, so I'd like to be able to finish that and just show you it finished. So wish me luck on that. I'll try and get quite a lot done for the next podcast. Right, let's have a little sniff and a little drink. got a bit cold now. That's always disappointing. I'll just show you a little tiny bit on my Cozy Memories blanket. Haven't done much on this, but what I have done is definitely that one, which was the unicorn tails. Oh, I loved that. This Madeline Tosh yarn is beautiful, and this is two held together. I said this in the last podcast, I think, so I'll just quickly show you the square that it made. It looks a lot better in real life than it does on this, than it's showing on the screen. You just have to trust me, it's gorgeous. It's really bouncy and squishy, and I love these colours. And I love the feel of it. I think I did that one. I've done that one a bit big. My blanket's not quite as neat as a lot of other people's blankets. Some of the squares are a bit big, and that one's too big. I thought that the yarn was going to be a bit finer to knit with. So I think instead of casting on 20 across and down, I cast on 22 possibly. I was trying to account for the fact that it might be, I thought that the square would be too small, but actually it's a bit big. So I'm wondering if I should just take that one apart, and because I still can, I can undo that one and just do the right amount of stitches for it, and then it won't stick out so much. I don't know, I can't remember what else. I can't remember what the new ones are, but the next yarn I've got to put in there, I've got 3 colours that I want to put in. I'm hoping I've got enough yarn in each of these skeins. I know I've got a load more of that. It's tweed. I bought it years ago, can't remember what it is, but I've got quite a lot of that crocheted into something that I don't really want, so I can undo that. And that's a lovely soft pinky tweed. And these two are, again, I've reclaimed them from old crochet projects that weren't ever going to really become anything. And it's the Wendy Wool Fusion, and it was, how many years ago that we bought this? Me and Emily bought a load of this, and we knitted jumpers for her little boy, who's 11 now, but he was only about 2 at the time. Excuse me. Anyway, I love this yarn, but they don't sell it anymore, so you can probably get some still on Ravelry and stashes, but I've been reclaiming it from some crochet squares. I've got them under here, like this, that my first ever sort of crochet projects. These squares have been sitting in a box. They've been moved around the country with me. They've lived in the attic. They've lived in a basket under the table, and I thought one day I might make a blanket with them, but in the end I think what's best is if I just pull it down and use that lovely yarn in this blanket, because then I think it'll definitely get made into something. So those are my next 3 colours, and I know where I want them in the blanket as well, so that's good. I might do a bit of that later actually, because it's easy TV knitting. You don't have to concentrate on a chart or anything for that. So right, okay. I'm just going to do a very quick mention of a couple of podcasts, because before I show you this remake project, because it's coming up to nearly an hour already, this podcast. So I just wanted to mention, I've already mentioned one of my favourite podcasts, and the lady that got me into watching podcasts, although she doesn't know that she did, and that's Melody of Mandarins. And I'm pretty sure that anybody watching this will probably already have seen her beautiful, lovely podcast. But if not, that is definitely worth having a look at, because she does some beautiful designs. She works with natural fibres, and she's inspired by nature, and she's just lovely to listen to. So Melody of Mandarins. Leona, is it, of A Wee Bit Nitty. She was the second podcast that I started watching. It's possibly Melody from Mandarins mentioned Leona's podcast, which is what made me go and have a look at hers. And she is in Norway, I think. She's a Norwegian lady in Norway, and she's got the most adorable dog called Gustav. And he is gorgeous, and he's a flat coat retriever, and he often is sitting just here by Leona, just sort of looking at her with his lovely big long nose, shiny nose. And he's just adorable. And Charlie, my dog, who you've just met, when we lived back in my hometown, I'm not from Wales, so before I moved to Wales, long before I moved to Wales, when Charlie was younger, I used to meet up with several other people who were walking their dogs, and Charlie had a friend called Benson, who was a flat coat retriever, and he was as daft as a brush. He was just so silly and so gorgeous and adorable and ridiculous. And Gustav, although I'm not saying he's ridiculous and silly, but he looks just as adorable and kind and lovely as Benson, the dog that we used to know, Charlie's old friend. So got a little soft spot for Gustav and for the Wee Bit Nitty podcast. So yeah, that's Leona. She's really lovely. She's I think she's a teacher. She does lots of knitting. So oh, and spinning as well. It's nice to see her. I always like to see what she's been doing with her spinning. I've mentioned Dana, who's just done her very first podcast from Dynamite. And she was the first person that's got in contact with me to say that she'd watched my podcast. So I wanted to say hello. Hi, Dana, if you're watching this. It's really nice to say hello properly like this. Hi. I just thought that would be nice because you took the trouble to come over and comment and say hello to me. And I really enjoyed her first podcast. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing her second podcast. There's loads. Actually, I've got quite a big list here. Katie, inside number 23. I don't think I really even need to say any more because I'm pretty sure again that everybody's going to know her podcast. But she's loads of fun. She's got a massive personality. She just seems so lovely. She's got a little dog called Rolly the pug, who's quite a large feature on the podcast. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. It's not nice to hear me coughing, is it? But Katie and Rolly are brilliant, and I love seeing what she's making. And she's just started doing a bit of spinning as well, which I'm watching with avid interest because I have tried spinning in the past, a bit of drop spindle and a little bit on a spinning wheel. Not much success. Katie, if I pick up my spindle again, I will be showing you my very first attempt because it's pants. But we've all got to start somewhere, haven't we? But you know, it's not as good as your first attempt, which was lovely. I saw it on Instagram, so well done, Katie. I'm looking forward to seeing some more of your spinning. And I wanted to join in with her Harry Potter Cal. She's got that going on till the end of April, but I just did not have time or resources actually in the end. I had a crazy idea that I was going to be able to purchase all this beautiful Madeline Tosh yarn that I wanted for an idea I had for a blanket, but I'm going to reserve it for the future. The idea's here, it's staying here, and I think I'll just have to save up and get the yarn, acquire the yarn. Maybe I'll even hand dye some yarn for it. But I've got a lovely idea for if there's another Harry Potter Cal going on in the future, I'm in. But I just couldn't quite make it for this one. But I'm keep having a look at her Cal just to see what everyone else is making. Because I'm a Harry Potter fan too. I'm not as big as Katie because she is just absolutely crazy about Harry Potter and talks about Harry Potter every single podcast, pretty much, which is okay with me. But I'm rereading the books at the moment because I read them all back to back, cover to cover when I first discovered Harry Potter. I think when they first came out. Saw all the films, got the PlayStation games. I'm not a PlayStation player at all now. I don't do that now, but way back then, years ago, in the household there was a PlayStation, and so I did actually used to play the Harry Potter games on that. Wouldn't do it now probably, but just knit Harry Potter stuff now. But I did buy for my for Emily's little boy, my best friend's boy, Jacob. He's 11 and he's just been reading the Harry Potter books. He's got to the age where he's discovered them. I lent him some of my books to read. He's got the box set, so he's watched all the films, he knows it inside out. And for his birthday in February, I bought him Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit. Katie, do you know about this? There is a Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit. That's all I'm saying. You don't get the board, it's just questions, but hey. I bought it for Jacob, I sent it off in the post. Didn't look at it first, could have got it out and looked at it, but didn't. Sent it off to him and absolutely cannot wait because next week they're coming to visit, to stay, and he's going to bring the Harry Potter Trivial Pursuit and he's completely going to win and beat me and thrash me at that game because it's been ages since I've read or watched the books or the films. So I've been trying to reread them. I'm only on the third one, but that's not saying very much because actually I didn't have the second one. I think he's still got it, so I've actually only read 1.5 books. I need to, maybe I'll watch one of the films later. So I'm trying to refresh my brain, give myself half a chance of answering some of these questions. So anyway, that I went off completely off tangent there. I was talking about Katie, Inside Number 23. She's got a fantastic website, podcast, lots and lots of fun, very Harry Potter orientated. It has been so far. But lots of beautiful knitting. Harry Potter's not all there is to her podcast. So if you don't like Harry Potter, still go and have a look at her podcast because there's some lovely yarns, some beautiful knitting on there. And sewing. I love seeing what she's sewing. And I'll just say one last one and then I'll save some more for the next podcast. Charlotte and Gus. She's great. And she's got a cat. Everybody seems to have an animal that I'm mentioning, apart from Melody, but she had some birds outside her window that she was watching one podcast, so I think she's an animal lover too. Charlotte and Gus. Charlotte's a French young lady in Paris, and she knits some beautiful things, absolutely beautiful things. She's got a lovely big ginger cat. She also, I believe, likes Harry Potter. I think, was she doing the Harry Potter cowl? I'm not sure. She's knitted a pair of socks, though, that I absolutely love. And I've favourited them on my Ravelry because I kind of want to copy them. Charlotte, your socks, the fine and dandy socks that you knitted with the squid on the beach yarn. Oh my gosh, I love them. I just love them so much. And I really, really had to restrain myself from ordering because that lady still got, is it My Mama Knits? She's still got that colourway in her shop. But I stopped myself because, well, one, I kind of have pledged to just ease off on buying yarn when I've got so much here. And yeah, I don't know if it's okay to copy someone's socks like that. And also, I love those socks, but I just can't motivate myself to knit socks for myself. So maybe I could get that yarn and make something different with it. Maybe mittens or a hat. But I love that yarn. And I love the Charlotte and Gus podcast. And she's just designed her first shawl, which includes a lot of brioche, which I've never done before. So possibly when that pattern comes out, I may just give that a go. We'll see. So, now time's moving on. So I'm just going to quickly show you Again, I've got a couple of other things that I wanted to show you here. I think I'll leave those till the next time because they're not going anywhere. But I'll show you this because I'm hoping to work on this week. So, the remake project that I'm planning. I think it was 2 years ago, Emily, my best friend, and me went to the Knitting and Stitching show in Harrogate. I think it was Harrogate. It would have been Harrogate because she lives in Leeds, so of course it would have been Harrogate. We've been a few years running, but we went to the Harrogate one and I found the most amazing stall that sold massive wool. And it's not spun wool, but it's great massive balls of wool to do great giant crocheting with, or knitting if that's what you want to do. And I do crochet as well. I just need to get up because the crochet hook is not within my reach. So I'll just grab that if I can. I really hope it's in here. Ah, yes it is. It's in my basket. My basket of yarn. Ooh, I'll just show you that because it's got some lovely yarn in it. With a little bunny rabbit there. Sorry, my computer went off then. So I bought massive wool, 3 balls of it, and each ball they're not in ball form now because they're crocheted up. But I'm going to change what I did with them. The balls were like this big, and the crochet hook is giant. It's massive. So that's what I bought at one stall. I think the lady who was running that stall, and she's on Facebook. I think she's got a website, and I think she does, from what I can tell, she does lots of workshops all over the place. Ingrid Wagner, I think that's how you say her name. I will write it here. So it's worth checking out what she's up to because she does lots of lovely, fun, great big projects with this amazing big wool yarn, and she sells it. I believe she sells it online as well. So I think you can buy some from her online. But I found the most amazing colours. What I made out of my yarn, I bought 3 colours, like a mustardy yellow, a fuchsia pink, and a sort of pale blue. And I made a round rug. I'm going to move back so I can try and show you it. Actually, as I'm showing you it, I actually quite like it now. I'd fallen out of love with it, and well, I think I love it. It's so squishy and beautiful. I'll show you it close up. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love the colours. I love the project itself in terms of the squishiness and the wool. There it is close up. But the shape of it doesn't seem to fit anywhere in my house where I can properly use it and sit on it. Charlie's been using it a lot, but I've washed this and I've been keeping it on the tabletop so it stays clean, because I've started to unravel it, and I think what I now want to do with it, that's it as it is at the moment. Could be a bit of a crime actually to undo this. Well, I can always redo it. Anyway, we'll see. What I want to do is unpick it, use the colours just in blocks rather than in stripes this time round, and probably just do a straight-sided rectangular rug with it. And I think that way I will probably use it more. So I've only unravelled the first round from the outside, because I wanted to keep the rug intact to show you how it was as a before and an after. Sorry, I'm going to cough. Sorry about that. So this is what the yarn looks like, or do you call it yarn? This is what it looks like unwound or unworked, let's say uncrocheted. And I think this is sourced from wool mills. I think it's selvages of cloth, of woven woolen cloth from mills in France, Italy and the UK. I think it tells you on her website, I'm sure, where she gets her yarn from. So what a brilliant idea. So I think this would, originally in its manufacture, this part of the fabric would probably go to waste. So absolutely brilliant to be reusing it and making a business out of it. And yeah, and it crochets up with the help of a giant crochet hook. 2 great big massive squidgy crochet stuff, a fabric. So I actually quite like it now, looking at it now. I'm still going to remake it. So what it involves is unpicking it row by row. Not hard because it's so big, it doesn't take long. But then I'm just ironing it as well. I'm going through and steaming it just to make it flat again so that I can work with it. Yeah, I think I'll do just 3 blocks, a blue, a pink and a mustard. And I'll do a long rectangular for the front of the fire, to go in front of the fire probably. And in which case, because at the moment the rug is just thrown in a spare room. I just can't make it fit anywhere in the house at the moment, satisfactorily. And I think if it was a different shape and if the colours are arranged slightly differently, then I will fall back in love with it and have it somewhere where we're going to use it all the time. So maybe by next podcast, hopefully I will have definitely unravelled all of that. Maybe I'll have done something with it as well. We'll see. Watch this space. That's what I've got. Another remake I was going to show you, but I think I'll wait till my next podcast because gone over an hour again. Didn't mean to do that. I was kind of aiming at half an hour. I've got a sewing project to show you as well. I'm going to show you that very, very quickly because this is definitely something I'm planning on finishing before the next podcast. It's for my niece. I'm making her a little dress. Where's my pattern? It's called the Pumpkin Spice, I think, by Heidi and Finn. And here's the picture. My printer isn't very good, but there's the picture from the website. So you can't really see very well. It's a cute little dress with. It's quite simple, cute little sort of, you can have short sleeved or you can have it 3/4 length sleeved. I'm going to do it short sleeved because hopefully she'll wear this for the summer. And I'm doing it for her in this fabric that I bought from Abercarn again, that fabric shop I told you about in Flintshire. I bought loads of this fabric. I wanted to make a top for myself and I still will be able to because there's loads of it, because Evie's only not even 4 yet, she's tiny, so I'm still going to have enough fabric left over to do my top as well. I'll just have to ring up Evie and make sure she's not wearing the dress when I'm wearing my top. I don't think she'd care, her mum might though. But there's the fabric. Anna, if you're watching, Evie's mum, my sister, I hope you like this fabric because it's a really cute colour and I do think it's going to suit Evie's colouring because she's got like beautiful strawberry blonde red hair. I was making it in a blue in a really cute blue like muslin fabric, but I'd cut out the pieces in the size that the pattern recommended for Evie's measurements. When I sewed it all up and I tried it on we tried it on Evie just over her long sleeve top. It was a tightish fit. I think Anna said that she thought it was going to fit, but I just wasn't convinced. And certainly it's not going to fit her for very long, even if I can get it on her now. And, you know, kids like to run around and be free, don't they? So I don't want her to be constrained by a dress that's a bit too tight for her. And if I'm going to make her a dress, I want her to be able to wear it for at least the whole of the summer. So I didn't have any more of that fabric. So that's a bit of a shame. I'll just have to wait for another very small person to come along who might be able to fit into that dress. So in the meantime, I found this. I just thought, well, this fabric would suit her. And it's a lot more drapey anyway. I don't even know what the fabric content is. But it's just really drapey. So I think that's going to look really cute as a little gathered cap-sleeved dress. I've got some lining from something else, from a dress that I had, that I can use inside it as well. So attempt number 2 at the Heidi and Finn pumpkin spice dress for my niece in that fabric. And I've got all the pieces cut out, so probably this afternoon I'm going to do a little bit of sewing on that and see what I get. I'm just trying not to cough now. I'm just seeing in my notes if there's anything I really wanted to say. Sorry, I'm hoping I won't be coughing by next time. I think I've said everything. I've definitely said everything because I've gone way over an hour again. So that's it. So thank you for watching the second episode of the Loop and Bar podcast, if you're still here, if you've stuck with it. I am Loop and Bar on Ravelry. I've got a blog, loopandbar.co.uk. If you're watching the podcast, that's probably what you like that's probably your thing. But if not, or if you would also like to see the blog, I usually post all of the show notes for the podcast, details and links of anything I've spoken about will be on there. And more additional pictures, really, still images, obviously. So there might be some stuff on there that I haven't spoken about or showed. Or you might just be able to see things in a bit more detail on the podcast, on the blog. I did used to do a bit about my garden as well, but I've hidden it for now because I haven't done any gardening for a long time. Well, I have, but not much. The weather hasn't been great, so I'm probably just going to stick to things like knitting and crochet and sewing on the podcast. I occasionally might show you a seedling I've grown at some point, but because I have got some hellebores that I've grown from a seed outside, and they're so tiny at the moment, but they're in a few weeks' time they might be a bit bigger. So I might show you that, but it will only ever be a tiny bit of like, this is a flower I did. I grew. See, very technical. Yeah. I'll mainly this is just going to be knitting and crocheting. Anyway, I'll stop waffling. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks to anyone who's come back and who saw my first episode. And thank you if you're a new viewer. And I'd love to see you again for Lupin Bar episode number 3, which hopefully will be next in maybe a week and a half. Okay, thanks then. Have a lovely week and hope you get lots of lovely knitting and crocheting in. Yeah, see you next time.